3 rooms that will have active cameras and microphones all day. If you don't want to be on the live stream or recorded in those rooms, please sit on the left-hand side. So pass the chairs on the left-hand side for the people who don't want to be on camera in the 2 other large rooms. Any questions about that? Okay, great. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Noel or Noel. I'm a Gemini. I got 2 names. Very, very fortunate about it. I tweet professionally at BetaNYC and unprofessionally at NoNec. I will be retweeting many things throughout the day from BetaNYC and NYC So Data. So give yourself a round of applause for accomplishing your first big step, which is getting here. Thank you. If you've participated in other Open Data Days, School of Data, Code Across, you may have seen this slide before, but for those of you who don't know where you are physically located in the universe today, I want to show you this beautiful map. It is actually a representation because we don't have the imaging technology to actually produce this map, but this is our solar system and our galaxy. And everything that we can possibly conceive of is located on that little small dot. And let me just do a little, bring in a little bit closer. On the left-hand side is the largest, no, it's the furthest photograph that we have of our blue marble, which is from Voyager. And that beam of light is a refraction of Saturn, if I'm not mistaken. And that's where we are. And it's kind of impressive that all of the struggles that we fight for and all of the good things that we experience happens on this little tiny blue dot. This is a reminder that small things do matter, even though we're in a very big space. We're very small, and those little things we should take into consideration all day long. And to that extent, we should be thinking of how do we improve this wonderful blue dot that we're on. How many have seen the movie Hackers? Woo! Okay, good. For those of you who haven't, there's some homework to do this evening. It stars, it's a motley crew, a lot of great technology represented in it. Clear Apple products, which is another cool thing. So when we talk about hacking the planet and when we talk about improving the little blue dot that we're on, we have to recognize the land that we are standing on, or that we are on top of. We are not the first settlers of this place. We are actually on occupied territory. The indigenous population that were on the islands that we're here on were systematically removed from this area. They were, one can say that the islands were purchased, but that is very much a whitewashing of history. The Lenape people, when they first encountered the Dutch settlers and the European settlers, had kind of an open trade policy, or so the white history books tell us. The island of the center of the world talks about the fact that there was actually a bit of kind of like difficulty understanding how the 2 cultures saw each other and saw the sharing of resources. According to the book, the Lenape people said that if you cannot own the sea, nor can you own the air, how can we own the land? And as we sit on a series of islands, I think it's really important that we really understand that we have very limited resources to work with. And as we see the world that we're in today, we're dealing with further limited resources. And so BetaNYC as an organization sees itself as shepherding the future. And today, we want to make sure that that message is carried across to all of our sessions and all of our activities, that we're here collectively to share our resources, to share our knowledge, and to share our passion in a positive, constructive way to help address systematic injustices that are within our society, so that way we can bring about a better tomorrow. Some of the data points that we like to point out are the fact that Last year, we had 492 ticket holders. 32% of you did some type of government work. That's inclusive of volunteering for government. Last year was our first year that we were able to document that there was an there was a majority representation of individuals who prefer the she, her pronoun. Thank you. It's also Women's History Month, so I'm glad that all of you are representing. For some of you who want to be future sponsors, we had about 48% who wanted to share their information. And lastly, we had 37 sessions and 106 speakers. This year's data points are bigger. So as of 11 o'clock last night, we had 574 ticket holders. Once again, we're still at 32% government representation. We're still having a higher or a majority representation of she, her pronouns with they and others coming in with a higher representation. So we're glad that our community is representing a diverse perspective. We have a smaller group of children in childcare, but that's cool. We still have children here. 73% of you live in New York City. 32 of you have agreed to share your information with sponsors. We have 65 sessions, 148 speakers, and 45 volunteers. It is a crazy day today. Once again, what we're here to do as a community is to embrace each other and to improve our future and talk about the great work that we all do. So with that, I would like to introduce a new member to our community who has recently changed jobs. And this is the lovely Commissioner Tisch from DoITT, who has made sure that she could be here this morning and come talk to us and give some morning remarks. So let's give her a round of applause. Use this one, or you can use this one. Which would you like? All right.
Thank you.
Let's get this. All right.
Oh my God, I'm getting flashbacks to being back in law school, being in this room. So I want to start by, of course, thanking BetaNYC and the great executive director, Noel, for inviting me to address all of you today. BetaNYC is a fabulous organization. It's focused on data, technology, and design, advocacy, and programming, which is something that you don't see enough of, and Noel and BetaNYC do it quite effectively. BetaNYC is doing the very important work of training the 21st century civil service workers and leaders in the technology space. And yes, I hope that that ends up being a lot of you. In me, you have a citywide CIO in New York City who shares your belief and your commitment to open data and, don't get too excited, Noel, as much as possible and responsible open technology and open algorithms. I want to now officially give a big hello to all of you, the city's technology, data, and design community. I want to thank Dean Bilek for hosting us today in this fabulous room, in this fabulous center. And I want to acknowledge and thank one of my most important mentors in city government, that is Manhattan Borough President Gale Brewer, who I think most of you know is the mother of open data in New York City. To be clear, we would not have open data in New York City without her important advocacy going back far beyond, I think the law was passed in 2011, was that? All right. Borough President Brewer, in general, is the most effective advocate for important causes, and you and the open data community could not be more fortunate to have her in your corner and leading the charge. As many of you know, I am the new CIO of DoITT. I have been, DoITT is the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications, also called the citywide CIO. I have been on that job for 90 days, but I've spent over 11 years working in city government, and in particular, working in city government on technology programs. And as I think about my career, most of the 11 years was spent at the New York City Police Department, where for the past 6 years, I was the Deputy Commissioner of Information Technology, so the CIO of the NYPD. And in my time there, I had the great honor of overseeing a technology revolution at one of the largest agencies in the city. And the technology revolution there took technology at the NYPD from being really a sideshow to absolutely central and fundamental to everything that the NYPD did, the way it worked internally, the way it interacts with the community. So technology today at that agency is fundamental to its day-to-day operations, which is important for many reasons. First, what we did at the NYPD to pivot and to turn the ship with technology was, I called myself a silo buster. Every piece of information data you could get at the NYPD, it was all siloed. And there was no way to see different pieces of information in the context of each other. So just in busting down all of those silos and putting the data together, we were able to give the police department much, much, much better, I think, industry-leading analytic capabilities, ways to slice and dice the data, better ways to understand where crime is occurring, what type of crime was occurring, ways to identify patterns. But the other thing the silo busting allowed us to do was to democratize NYPD data more than we had ever before to the public, to put more data sets on open data, and to build transparency tools that allow the public to come in and for themselves slice and dice NYPD data. And I encourage all of you to consider careers in government technology, because the ability to make an impact, the way I am proud of the impact that I made at NYPD and hope to be proud of the impact I made as citywide CIO, is awesome. As for my 90 days as citywide CIO and where I see this going over the next few years, I've been really busy. We're about to launch Text to 911, which is going to change the way that all New Yorkers can interact with 911, but most importantly and impactfully, the deaf and hard of hearing community, as well as survivors of domestic violence. We're working on a massive technology modernization of the infrastructure that supports all city systems. We're working on a big rollout of 5G in New York City, which I believe will be the highway for the future. But I also want you to know that I am very committed to open data and working with all of you, with Beta New York City, to address the very real concerns that I've heard, and by concerns, I mean opportunities for improvement in the way that the city provides open data. And in particular, I'm committed to more frequent updates of the data sets that exist today. I'm committed to working with our open data coordinators at each agency to identify what new additional data sets we can make available to the public. And also, I'm interested in working with all of you to exploring an open source platform for New York City data. I don't want to go on too much. Those were the brief highlights of some of the things that I'm thinking and working on. And to show you my commitment and to show Noel my commitment to this work, I am announcing today that DoITT for the first time is going to have a new position of the Chief Data Science Officer that's going to be focused specifically on open data. This is on the most senior level of positions in the agency. And I'm hoping that he's going to be starting in the next 2 weeks. And I look very much forward to introducing him to all of you. So with that, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Noel, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Excellent. It is a great honor to have the commissioner here, the chief CIO. Next up, we have our hosts, CUNY Law School. How many of you are lawyers in the house? Okay, a few. And how many of you attended CUNY Law? Okay, how many of you want to attend CUNY Law then? All right, so here comes the sales pitch from Mary Lu Bilek. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you, Noel. I am so excited that Beta New York is here, that they've given me this opportunity to be in this building. We are blessed at CUNY Law School with a fabulous building, but what really makes this law school great are the students who go here and the faculty who teach here, and the energy and the vision of the people who visit our building and carry their dreams and their work into our building. It motivates us and inspires us. What you are all doing is really important. That you're all here on a Saturday morning shows your commitment. And so I just want to thank all of you for giving us your energy in this space. My name is Mary Lu Bilek. It is my privilege to be the dean of what was called the premier public interest law school in the country. In 1983, a radical group of law professors and practitioners got together and said, what would a law school look like if we wanted to do something that at the time was transformational, if we wanted actually to prepare students to be lawyers in the field? And what would a law school look like if we answered every question about how we built it based on 2 mission points? 1, how to create access to legal education and the law profession, and 2, how to create proud, strong, creative social justice and public interest lawyers. To the first point, access. We often talk about diversity, right, and how we all learn better when we make decisions in diverse groups, and that's important in this law school. But what I've learned from 30 years of being here is that what changes the world is that when you take those that the law has worked on and you give them the opportunity to become lawyers, that's transformative. That's how there's more equity in the world. That's how the world becomes a better place. So that's who our students have been for 35 years, who our students continue to be. That's who our graduates are out in the field. We are the most diverse law school in the country, and we graduate by far the highest percentage of public interest lawyers in the country. We are the place to be if you want to use the law in the service of human needs or to change the world. I hope I see some of you at the law school someday. Okay, like, isn't this a great school? Okay, so just to be concrete about a connection between us and you. So one of my alums is a woman named Cynthia Conti Cook. Cynthia worked for years in civil rights litigation and in the Legal Aid Society. And towards the end of her time at the Legal Aid Society, she realized that using open data, she could create a database that tracks the misconduct by New York City police officers to advance police accountability. So she created a database, not work that we think of as lawyers, but work that sprung from her work as a lawyer, responsible and accountable not only to her individual clients, but to the system of justice generally, and to the communities that her clients come from. The database that Cynthia created is a searchable database, searchable by officer's name, unit, precinct, and type of allegation of misconduct. The point being not just to identify bad officers, but to work towards identifying and eliminating the type of misconduct that is recurring, that is systemic, and that can be corrected through training and systems of assessment and evaluation. So I'm proud to give you an example of something one of our alums has done that I think tracks what you know about the power of open data. When I describe our law school, I like to use a quote by the Persian poet Rumi. Rumi said, "Out there beyond abstract ideas of right and wrong, there is a field. I will meet you there." I think you all know that real change comes not from rhetoric or bold speeches about right or wrong, not from boardrooms or White Houses with Oval Offices, not from thrones or seats in legislatures, and not from ivory towers or steel and glass structures. Real change comes from the ground, from the field, from workers, from lived lives revealed through real facts, from one data point to rows of numbers revealed, scrutinized, and examined. Data about those in the field, collected by those in the field, and analyzed by those in the field. Real change comes from those who feel marginalized, exposing the margins through data, revealing their lives through facts that cannot be explained away or ignored. Real change comes from transferring the power of data from the penthouses to the fields, putting the data in the hands of the lives of the people that make the city go, that make the city great, and then letting them work the soil. Real change comes not from abstract ideas or the pronouncements of the powerful. Real change comes from you in that field. So out there, beyond abstract ideas of right or wrong, there is a field. I will meet you there. Thank you.
Wow. And Cynthia Conti Cook is actually an alumni of School of Data. She has presented and talked about algorithmic transparency and is one of the critical voices. She's now at the Ford Foundation, and you should follow her on Twitter, one of the most amazing lawyers that we have in our municipal community. I would also like to give a shout out to Megan McDermott. Megan, if you're here, not here yet. Megan McDermott is a current CUNY Law School student. She was formerly at Mozilla, helped organize the Hive Network. If you've ever participated in the Hive Network, you can really thank her. She was instrumental in lobbying me to ensure that we would come to CUNY Law and see the great facilities here. CUNY also, we have a very tight relationship with CUNY, which I'll talk about in a minute, but I have to give public declaration of thank yous to CUNY Law again, Megan and Cynthia Conti Cook for making sure that we could be here at CUNY Law and also Karen, for who has taken care of all of our needs and all of the CUNY staff. So if you see a CUNY staff member today, give them a thanks for letting us be in their house. And if you see a CUNY Law School student, they're in the middle of midterms and writing things, so you please don't disturb the students. They're frantically trying to ensure that we have public interest law in the future. So if you want to feed them a sandwich, just be like, go eat over here. So I want to tell you a little bit about our story because it is, we revel in the fact that we are a community. And our community story is unique. We're here in New York City. We're the home of what are the four freedoms. President FDR and Eleanor Roosevelt, who later on championed these four freedoms as the foundation of the Fundamental Declaration of Human Rights, said that all of us, all humans, all earthlings, should have the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the freedom from want, and the freedom from fear. The last two freedoms are, one is about economic opportunity, and the other one is to ensure that we don't live under a tyrannical government. These four freedoms were at the foundation of our entry into World War II. They were articulated in front of Congress in a way of more or less warning that we would essentially have to defend these four freedoms on a global stage. These four freedoms are still very much at our community's core. In 1989, the city published something that's very unique. If you go to the municipal archives, you can actually pull off the shelf a phone book-like device, which is the very first and the only public data directory ever published. We thank Gail and her team of elders who fought in the 80s to ensure that data transparency was something that was at the core of our municipal government in the latter part of the 20th century. This phone book, it's thick, first teaches you how to file a Freedom of Information request. It first teaches you access to information and how to get access to information. It then later on describes this particular data set. So here we are looking at the agency, Department of the Aging. The data set is the grants management data set. The data set was activated in 1989. The application description, which is essentially tells you what the data can do and what it's the database contents. What's interesting about this particular document is that we are still fighting for this type of access today. Even with all of the great wins that we have with open data, we still don't have this little application description section inside of the open data portal, which is fundamental in the 21st century, so that way we can hold the technology systems that our tax dollars are essentially producing. We can hold them account and make sure that they're not being used improperly against us. Now, I don't know, how many of you remember the good old days of the NYC Open Government Meetup? Raise your hand, because there's a handful of you. This is actually, here on the left, a photo of us back in the original Newark City from our very first meetup. It took me a while to find this particular photo. In the upper right-hand corner is a photo from the old Open Plans penthouse. The gentleman photoed there is Tom Lowenpult. He passed away last year. He was a community board member. He was instrumental in making sure that as our meetup evolved, understood the power of community boards. As a community board member, he was able to get a resolution passed that said, hey, there's this thing called a top-level domain, and New York City, as a world predominant, as the #1 city in the world, world-class city, we should have our own TLD. That TLD is now known as .NYC, and BetaNYC uses it pretty extensively on all of our products. We wouldn't have that TLD if it wasn't for Tom's advocacy for many, many years, advocating in and out of government, saying that New York City needs to have a top-level domain. He also, you can still see his code if you go to the Queens Community Board that he served on. They probably have one of the best, well-kept websites that goes back a few decades because of Tom. And he was a dedicated volunteer who was all about making sure that information was accessible, particularly community board information was accessible to everyone through the internet. The other person that's photoed here is Matt Cooper-Ryder, who started the Meetup. Matt started this as a partner of, as a project of his PhD, and more or less kind of sat and started this crazy train that we are now all on. Matt is now in Australia, and we cherish all work that our past community members have put together. We then met this really entrepreneurial city council member who had this wide-eyed ideal that government information should be accessible on the internet. Councilmember Brewer, then Councilmember Brewer, was like, we have this data dictionary, this data directory. It was published in 1989. Why the heck don't we have it now? And was instrumental in first introducing the piece of legislation as a radical piece of information of radical transparency, that all information should be published. Then Mayor Bloomberg didn't think that was such a good idea. Who knew? Mayor Bloomberg, not into transparency. It took us 2 years to form a coalition. That coalition was known as the Transparency Working Group, which combined a number of good government groups from the progressive era who were essentially instrumental in starting 100 years beforehand. And we were the new kids on the block. We brought in our funky dance moves, and we talked about and legitimized their progressive vision of government in a digital era. On the 7th of March, 2012, this photo was taken. No, this photo was not taken. This is actually the signing ceremony that happened about a month or so later. And Phil Ashlock, who's in the back right over there, who now maintains and helps govern data.gov, is in that photo. So we're lucky to have 2 members of this photo here in this room today. From that law, our community said, shit, we should do something. We're facing the fact that we're going to move from one administration to another, and we set out to more or less create our mission, vision, and values. We partnered with then Rachel Hout and the city's digital team to come and write what we now know as the People's Roadmap to a Digital New York City. Through this document and a bunch of different meetups, we articulated our 4 freedoms: the freedom to connect, the freedom to innovate, the freedom to learn, and the freedom to collaborate. These 4 freedoms are at our foundation. Our leadership team always judges all of our programming by these 4 freedoms. We fundamentally need access to high-speed bidirectional internet. That is not only for learning, for creation and collaboration, but it's also our ability to connect with each other. We need the freedom and the liberty to kind of hack on projects. We need the freedom and the ability to meet in open spaces so that we can collaborate, and then ultimately the freedom to learn, which is the access to knowledge, code, data, tools, institutions, regardless of gender identity, language, age, faith, or class. We started hosting these March events as Code Across. You'll see some of these people later on today. One of them, as you can see, who's in this photo all the time, is Gale Brewer. She is an amazing elected official and human being who has been with us ever since. This was another co-working. Joel, thank you for getting us there back in the days at NYU. And then when Blasio came in, we set up a framework so that way we could get some of those things passed that we saw in the People's Roadmap. So pretty much every single year, we've gotten a little bit of that People's Roadmap immortalized as legislation or new policy. We've been able to also do this through the Civic Innovation Fellows, Civic Innovation Lab and Fellows program, which is part of a program that is run by CUNY, the Manhattan Borough President's Office, and BetaNYC. To date, we've been able to get 60 CUNY students through our boot camp, Yay. That has been an achievement. Our alumni are now ending up in government and in public-private positions. So we see this as the commissioner said, as a framework to teach 21st century civil service workers. Last year, we partnered with the Department of Education to extend our programming down to middle school and high school students, and this is a session, I should also point out we're gonna have a session with the Coding It Forward Fellows, and the BetaNYC team are gonna have a panel talking about the work and the impact, as well as the Hack League, which is a partnership with the Department of Education. So we've extended our open data curriculum and education to middle school and high schools now. This is for the very first hackathon inside of City Hall. Did you know that City Hall, if you ever want to do an event in City Hall chambers, there are 4 electrical outlets to work with. Having 150 students on their laptops in City Hall chambers is like a non-equal sign. It is a challenging environment to work in that historic building, but we did it. Thanks to the dedication of Councilmember Koo, Councilmember Johnson, the mayor's team, and the Department of Education. So let's talk about some of the numbers here. Last year, we were able to do 5 borough-wide events that engaged 300 students. We hit 65 middle school and high school students, and we were able to come up, and they were able to come up with 72 various projects. We were able to educate 100 teachers through 3 different PDs. That then built a framework for us to then go out and do in-borough engagements with borough presidents and subject matter experts. In total, we had 1,500 students participate in Hack League. And if that's the conservative estimate. If we were to kind of broaden it out, we got 2,500 students. We engaged with 2,500 students. So over the work that we've been doing, it's kind of like we're at the point where it's like winning a Grammy, but there's no trophy to have anything. So in many ways, School of Data is actually like us coming and doing a halftime show. And if you don't know, I'm Puerto Rican, so I'm very, very happy that La Bandera is proudly represented. So let me talk about what we are here today. How many of you remember Care Bears? All right, how many of you have come to a School of Data beforehand and seen this slide before? All right, a number of you. For those of you who don't know Care Bears, it's a group of magical bears. They have rainbows that shoot out of their bellies. They care for each other. They're like the ponies, but a little bit older. They're wonderful. If you have kids, you should introduce them to the Care Bears. They care. So School of Data is a community conference. Our focus is on civics, design, tech, and data. Our theory of change is really, really simple. We are collectively building a culture of data and technology that improves service. We reject individualism. We believe in collective action to survive and thrive. We believe in perpetual feedback loops to improve ourselves. We are not watched over by machines of loving grace, and we are in control of our own destiny. It's a mixture of panels, workshops, and office hours. And to talk about the logistics, I'm going to get off the stage, and I'm going to bring on our Civic Innovation Fellow, Gabby Langston. Where are you, Gabby? There you are. Let's give a round of applause for Gabby Langston. All right, do you want this microphone or this microphone? That microphone. All right. All right, you can use this or the arrow.
Use the arrow.
All right.
Okay. Okay, hi, can everyone hear me? It's good? All right, yay. All right, so my name is Gabrielle Langston. I like to be called Gabby for short. I am part of the 6th cohort of the Civic Innovation Fellows Program. I currently attend New York City College of Technology, where I'm majoring in applied math. Okay, so as I just said, we are in the 6th year of the Civic Innovation Fellowship. If I may just share with you just a very brief story. My journey began when I applied through CUNY Service Corps. And once I was accepted into the program, I went to the job matching fair, and it was very hectic. There was like all these people recruiting, and then I got to the office of the Manhattan Borough President table, where I met some recruiters from BetaNYC. So I met Kate Nicholson, I met Emily Goldman, and they just blew my mind away with how they were so committed to making open data user-friendly and transparent, and I knew that I better get my act together and apply for this thing because this was such a life-changing opportunity. Okay. So each year, BetaNYC trains a new cohort and teaches people like me about civic data, design, and technology practices through a semester-long boot camp. So I am one of the current survivors of the boot camp. And afterwards, the fellows are assigned specialized projects, and they help the city perform, through vital research and various data analytics. As for me, this is actually one of my first new projects, was helping co-organize this event. So, hey. And thank you. And I am very proud to introduce this year's Civic Innovation Fellows. In fact, are there any fellows in the room currently? Is anyone? Oh, all right, no worries. But anywho, we come from a variety of CUNY schools. Some of us are undergraduates, some of us are getting our masters, and it is such an honor to serve with my fellow cohort members. Okay, and now if I may, I want to get into the day's conference logistics. So first and foremost, we want to minimize paper usage. Therefore, we ask that you visit this following link here if you want to access the schedule for the day's events. Okay, and then this is especially important for our session leaders. In order for our schedule to work, it is so important that you end your sessions on time, and we'll notify you by ringing this cowbell. So once the cowbell rings, that's it, it's over. Time to move on. Okay, also be sure to visit our cafe up on the 3rd floor. That's where our sponsors will be for the day. And then next, I know we are in flu season. I know everyone knows about the coronavirus, and we're all, kind of freaking out. But regardless of that, we are our best defense to getting this virus, and I just ask that we take a few precautions. So first and foremost, if you don't want to shake someone's hands, that's fine. Just say, I'd rather not shake hands right now. It's totally fine. On the other hand, don't be offended if someone doesn't want to shake your hand. Okay, secondly, please wash your hands. As you may have seen, there have been signs, posted everywhere. Please wash your hands. And we also have extra sanitizer for everyone throughout the day. Okay. Third, if you could please, if you want to, read up on the CDC's coughing and sneezing etiquette. And lastly, if you are sick, stay home. Okay, so throughout the day, if you need help, or or if you want to join us through happy hour, look for our volunteers. They're going to be wearing these blue T-shirts, these blue BetaNYC T-shirts. And if you're older than 21 years of age and want to attend happy hour, which is going to happen towards the end of the day, you will need to show a government-issued ID, for which then you'll be assigned a wristband, and that's the only way you'll be allowed to have alcoholic beverages. Okay, so next I want to touch upon our conduct and our photo consent. Okay, so here at BetaNYC, everyone has a place at our events. So equality and community equity are two core components of building a vibrant civic hacker and technology community. So by attending this event today, you are committing yourself to our code of conduct and our anti-harassment policy. So in short, our code of conduct is to be respectful and to listen just as much as you speak. Okay, and then regarding the lanyards, which I think most of you have, so upon arrival today, you were probably asked, do you consent to your photo being taken? So just a reminder, if you selected a black lanyard today, you gave us the okay, you want your photo to be taken. If you have any hesitations about your photo being taken, that's totally fine. Just please ensure that you select a red lanyard. Okay, and if you have any questions or comments or concerns throughout the day, be sure to ask Noel or Lauren or Kate. And I just want to say thank you so much, everyone, for welcoming me into your community. Thank you, Noel, for giving me the chance to co-plan this event. I am forever grateful. Thank